and buying. So what's the difference? So with leasing and buying, there's a big difference. Leasing is you're essentially borrowing the car from the bank. So you're not going to own it, and you're limited to how many miles you contract with the dealership. So for instance, you can contract that you're going to borrow the car for 3 years, but you're only going to drive 10,000 miles a year, or 12,000 miles a year, or 15,000 miles a year. If you drive the car, let's say you contract it for 10,000 miles a year, at the end of 3 years, you should only have 30,000 miles on the car. If you have more than that, the dealership's going to charge you extra money. So it's normally about 25 cents per mile that you're over. And the other thing is you have to return the car in good condition at the end of the lease term. So if you get into a car accident, you got to make sure that it's fixed when you return it. Otherwise, you're going to be charged for that. Okay. So leasing, just remember, you're not buying the car, you're basically borrowing it from the bank, and you got to make sure that you take care of it, and at the end of the term of the contract that you lease the vehicle for, you can only have certain amount of miles on it, if that makes sense. The next is buying the car. This is your other option, right? Here you are financing or purchasing the vehicle, and you can drive the car for however many miles you want, and you don't have to return the car at all at the end of the period because you now own it. Okay, so when time comes for you to get a car, remember you can either lease it or you can buy it. When you lease it, you're borrowing it from the bank, not even the dealership. You're borrowing it from the bank or whoever is financing it, and then you're limited to how many miles you contracted for, and then you must return the vehicle in good condition at the end. With buying, you're financing or purchasing the vehicle. Even though a bank may hold the title until you pay it off, you are going to be the owner of it once you pay it off, and then you can drive it however many miles you want, and you don't have to return it at the end because you own it. So let's talk about how to negotiate car leases and purchases so that you guys can know how to do this as you go and purchase or lease your first car. As with anything else, knowledge is power. So you definitely need to do your due diligence and research before going to the dealership. What do you need to research? You need to research what the fair market value of the vehicle is. And you have to be aware that some vehicles may sell for more than what's called the manufacturer's suggested retail price, or as the dealership will call it, MSRP, right? So for instance, what does that mean? That means that if you go to the dealership's website, like let's say Toyota.com or something like that, and you look up, Toyota Corolla, and the MSRP is, let's say, $20,000. There's some cars that are limited in production or are so high in demand that sometimes the dealerships will charge more than whatever the MSRP is, right? A good example of that would be recently the Ford F-150 Raptors. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's a Ford truck, and it's their sport line truck. And dealers were selling that car almost $15,000 above what the sticker was, right? Another one is the Honda Civic Type R. I'm not sure if you guys know what that vehicle is, but it's a sports vehicle made by Honda. It's a Honda Civic, but it's the highest sports trim of it. And that vehicle also was going anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 over sticker. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you research what the fair market value of that vehicle is and what other dealerships are selling it for, and try to get the best deal. Don't just stick to one dealership. Go out and find out what all the dealers are offering, because every market is different, right? You got to remember, just because you live in Irvine, California, and the price at the Irvine Honda dealership is one price, doesn't mean that it's going to be the same if you went to, let's say, San Diego or Sacramento, or even out of state in Nevada. Just remember though, the farther you go, there may be shipping charges. So just kind of factor in all those different variables. The next thing you got to look at is interest rates. Now, this is probably going to be the most boring part of the presentation because it has to deal with numbers, it has to deal with all this research and all that, but bear with me. This is very helpful information because you guys, if you understand this, you're going to be way ahead of the curve of not just your classmates, but also some adults. Some adults don't even know this information, right? Most of the time when you guys negotiate or anybody negotiates car prices or for lease or purchase, they always just want to know what's the monthly payment, which is the worst thing to do. You do not want to know what just the monthly payment is because you could be getting ripped off. What you want to know is you want to know what the interest rates are, right? What is the bank offering as an interest rate? What does that mean? That means on top of whatever the price of the vehicle is, any lender who gives you or borrows or you borrow that money from, they're going to charge an interest rate. And what you want to do is you want to have the lowest interest rate as possible because you don't want them charging you a lot for borrowing their money. Okay, so all you need to do is, the dealerships call this the APR, right, which is the annual percentage rate. You want to make sure that you find the lowest interest rate. Okay, here's a little golden nugget for a lot of you guys that, again, a lot of adults don't know. You don't need to stick with the dealership's bank. Okay, what does that mean? That means if you go to, for instance, Lexus and you want to buy a Lexus, the bank that Lexus will automatically default you to is Lexus Financial Services, right? That's the bank that does most of the leases and purchases for Lexus dealerships. You don't need to stick to them, okay? You can ask them to see if there's any other credit unions or any other banks or financial institutions with lower interest rates, right? So don't just shop the MSRP of the vehicle, you have to shop the interest rates as well, okay? This is very important because, again, this is stuff that people don't even, adults don't even understand yet, right? The next is residual value, okay? This is extremely important. Residual value means what is the bank value the car after the lease term or purchase term, right? This actually goes more towards leases. So what this basically means is, let's say you, for numbers reasons, I'm terrible at math, but I'm gonna give you a very simple math calculation of how to calculate residual value. So what that means is, let's say you buy a car from a dealership that's worth $100, okay? The bank says that if you lease that vehicle for 36 months, right, which is a 3-year term at 10,000 miles, when you return it, the bank is going to say that car is worth $50, right? So what that means is the residual value of that car is 50%. Now here's how you calculate your lease payment then. If the bank says the residual value of that vehicle is 50%, then you're only responsible for $50, right, which is 50% of the car over the term of 36 months. So you calculate your payment by doing $50 divided by 36 months. That gives you what the monthly payment of your car should be. Plus, you got to add in tax, DMV fees, registration fees, licensing fees, and interest, right? We just talked about that right before. So find out what the interest rates are and what the residual value is. I hope that makes sense, but residual value is something that is, it's not as complicated as it's meant to be, but just to give you another example, let's say, you lease a Lexus and the residual value of that car after 3 years, 10,000 miles is 56%, right? Let's say that's typically what a Lexus is anyway. It's about 56 to 54%. Let's just say it's 56%, right? And the car is worth $100, right? Then you're only responsible for $36 of the lease over the term of 3 years, right? So that's how you calculate residual value. You want to know what the residual value is. For leases, you want the residual value to be as high as possible, right? Because then that reduces the amount that you're responsible for, right? If you plan to lease the car and eventually purchase it, you want that residual value to be low, because when you buy the car at the end, you want the bank to value that car for less, okay? So when you're looking for a vehicle, make sure that you do your research, you find out what the fair market value is, what the interest rates are. Don't just, accept them for whatever uh, the dealerships or banks give them to you at. Shop around and see what other people are offering or other financial institutions are offering, and then find out what the residual values are. A lot of times, I will tell you, dealerships will not give you the residual value of the vehicle because they don't want their consumers to know what that is, because they want to rip you off as much as possible. Okay, and so uh, don't get fooled when you walk into a dealership and the dealership says, "Oh, I'm going to give you a $5,000 discount," right? That sounds great, but you got to ask the important questions. Okay, if I'm getting $5,000 off, what's the interest rate and what's the residual value? Because if they manipulate those numbers in the back, they'll make up the $5,000 discount that they're offering you. Okay, so be careful about, when you go buy that car, make sure you do your research and find all this information. Okay, and again, as I mentioned before, find out what other dealers are offering and see if you can get a better deal. Okay, so you'll be surprised, a lot of cars you can buy at below MSRP. Okay, and sometimes even below invoice. And what invoice is that's what what the dealers typically pay for the cars, or that's the general sense of what an invoice should be. It always changes, but just know that you want to find out what the price of the vehicle is, the interest rates, and the residual values, and what other dealers are offering, so that you get the best deal possible. It's not just about you going into a dealership and asking, for a price of the car and the monthly payment and all of that. It's more to that. You want to find out what all of these bits of information are. So the more information you have, the better decision you'll be able to make. Okay. And in terms of like down payments and stuff like that, what that basically means is you're going to be giving them money up front to lower the principal costs, right? Whether or not you want to do that, that's up to you. I personally don't like to give down payments, only because you're giving away money to the dealership, and in the event that you need that money back, like let's say, for instance, you get into a car accident, the car is totaled, and it's not your fault, and you weren't trying to recoup anything. You want to make sure that you don't give them that money in advance, because it's going to be very difficult for you to get it back. With that being said, if you need a lower monthly payment, then do a down payment. I just personally don't like to do down payments, just because I'm just giving away money or liquid cash to the dealership when I rather negotiate a really good deal and then not pay anything up front, if that makes sense. If you guys have questions during any part of this, please write them down, because at the end there will be a Q&A. I know this can sound a little confusing, but I'm trying to simplify a very complicated process so that you guys just get a generic idea. The point of this presentation is it's not meant to be holistic. You're going to have to piecemeal all of the information that I give you, do additional research, because there's a lot more information that's involved with this. And I'm just trying to, fit everything within this 1 hour talk. So the next thing is check for incentives, rebates, or dealer cash. Sometimes the dealerships will offer dealer cash, which is like, hey, we'll pay you money to take this car, or they'll give you rebates. Like, for instance, if you are a college student, or if you're in the military, or if you're a Costco member, if you have certain credit cards like American Express, they'll give you rebates and incentives and whatnot. So check for all incentives, rebates, and dealer cash, and know that these vary from different counties, states, and whatnot. So just do your research, go above and beyond to make sure that you get the best deal possible, okay? So the next, as a corollary, which is a good SAT word for you guys, the next question to ask then is, which option is best for you, okay? And unfortunately, I have to give you the generic lawyer question, or answer, I'm sorry, which is, it depends, okay? if you are the type that will not take care of your car, you don't know how to do maintenance on it, you like to switch out your cars every 3 years, then leasing is probably going to be best for you. Or if you drive a lot, I'm sorry, if you don't drive a lot, leasing is probably going to be best for you. If you're the type that knows how to take care of a car, or you plan to take care of a car, or to learn how to take care of a car, and you drive a lot of miles, then buying will probably be best for you. Okay. Just remember, when you buy, you are keeping the vehicle. When you lease, you're going to return it at the end of the lease term or the contract, right? So make sure when you lease the car, you look at exactly what the terms of the contract are. If you do it for 36 months, 39 months, 42 months, 10,000 miles a year, you better make sure you stick to that. Otherwise, you're going to be paying money at the end. Another thing about leasing too is a lot of dealerships at the end of the lease term will charge what's called a lease disposition fee, which a lot of people don't know about. Okay. And what that means is they're going to charge you money to return their car. Okay. So make sure when you contract for a lease, you look for the lease disposition fees. A lot of companies, if you stay within the brand, will waive that for you. And what that means is if you lease a Lexus, you return it, and then you lease another Lexus, they'll waive that disposition fee for you. If you switch to a competitor brand like Lexus to Honda or BMW or anywhere else, then they're going to charge you that fee. But it doesn't mean you can't call the bank and ask them to waive that fee. And typically they can only waive it if you went with the manufacturer's bank, like Lexus Financial or Honda Financial or something like that. If you leased or financed it through another financial institution like Chase Bank or anything else like that, then they typically will not waive that. So just be aware of the lease disposition fee. So used cars. Oh wait, did I skip? I may have skipped presentation or slide. Let's see. Oh no. Okay, so used cars. If you're not in the market for a new car and you want to get a used car, here's the best way to do it. If you find a car that you like, you got to check the Carfax report, the auto check report, or the National Motor Vehicle Title Information System report. That's a mouthful. We call it NMVDIS reports. And what those are is it's going to give you kind of like the background history of the vehicle, what the vehicle's been through, when it was sold, if there was any recalls done, when the maintenance was done, if there were any car accidents, flood damage, theft, salvage titles, anything like that. That's going to tell you what the history of the car is. Keep in mind, some cars are able, or some people somehow are able to circumvent reporting to these agencies. So it doesn't guarantee that the car never was in an accident, but it's a pretty good start, okay? So if you're gonna buy a used car, you find one, get the Carfax report, NMVDIS report, or auto check report to make sure that there's nothing seriously wrong with the car. Things that can be seriously wrong with the car are things like it's a salvage title, it's been in a car accident, it's been stolen, there's flood damage, there's recalls. Those can all lead to future maintenance issues. So you want to find a car that doesn't have any of that, okay? The next thing to do is to get a pre-purchase inspection done by an independent third party, okay? So you can hire independent third parties to come and inspect the vehicle to make sure that nothing's wrong with it. Typically costs about $200 to $300, sometimes a little bit more depending on the car you're buying, but it's definitely worth the money. So do the background check and then do the PPE inspection. And then just like new cars, you want to check what the fair market value of that vehicle is. Check what other similar vehicles in similar condition with similar miles are selling. You can check on AutoTrader, eBay, Craigslist, OfferUp, wherever. Just look for cars that are similar to the ones you're looking at, see what the price is, and then come up with what the average price should be. And that should be the price that you'd be willing to spend, okay? If you can, request maintenance records. Just because a vehicle doesn't have it doesn't mean that there's an issue with it, because again, you can check the reports and get a PPE done. But if the owner has it, that's a pretty good indication that they took good care of the car because they've kept all the maintenance records and whatnot. If they don't have it, still doesn't mean that it's a bad car. Just make sure that you do everything else that's on this checklist. And then expect to spend some money on maintenance and repairs, okay? Because if it's used, then that means that probably an oil change is going to be necessary. Tires may need to be changed or rotated. Brakes may need to be replaced. But again, if you get that pre-purchase inspection, they're going to tell you, or they should tell you, all of that in advance. So you'll know how much life is left in the tires, the brakes, if you need to get an oil change, things like that. But again, these are not very costly maintenance issues. So just expect that, you may have to spend, like $50 or $60 on an oil change or, change the tires or something like that. So that's that for the used cars. Now, I don't know if you saw that little airplane zip by, but if you guys get a heavy foot and you guys get your new ride and you decide to speed for whatever reason or anything else and you get pulled over by the police, here's what you need to know. All right, so first and foremost, you need to pull over into a safe location for both you and the police officer, okay? So that means if you're driving and you look in the rearview mirror and you see red and blue lights and you hear the siren, and you're driving on the freeway, let's say, don't just stop in the middle of the freeway, okay? Because that's extremely dangerous for both you and the police officer, and it's not gonna end in a good result, okay? So pull over to a safe location for both you and the police officer, which could be the side of the freeway. You can exit at the nearest exit and pull into like a Carl's Jr. or McDonald's parking lot or something. Just make sure that you're somewhere safe for you and the police officer, okay? Place your vehicle in park. Don't leave it in drive. Place it in park because you don't want to accidentally let go of the brake and then start rolling and make the police officer think you're running away. So just make sure that you place the vehicle in park, and roll down your windows. And sorry, I'm getting like chats, but I'm gonna answer all the questions at the end. This is my first time doing Zoom, so excuse my noobness. But place your vehicle in park. You roll down your windows, or at least your driver's side window, and you take your keys out of the ignition and you place them on your dashboard, okay? The reason why you wanna do this is police officers are humans just like me and you. They're not robots, and they're fearful sometimes whenever they pull a stranger over, right? They don't know who you are. So you want to demonstrate and let them know that you're not planning to run away. So you wanna take your keys out of the ignition, or if you have a key that you just put in your pocket and you have a push start ignition, you just leave it on the dashboard just to let them know that you're consciously aware that the police may be fearful of you running away. So you're letting them know, look, I have no intention of doing that, okay? It's just a subconscious type of thing, right? The other thing is you want to keep both hands placed on the steering wheel, all right? Again, another reason for this is you're letting the police officer know that you're not going to be reaching for a weapon. You're not going to be reaching for something suspicious. You're just there to speak with the police officer, and you're showing him your hands, okay? So just keep the hands on the steering wheel. Every time you make movements, make very slow movements, and any time that you're going to be taking your hands away from the steering wheel, like for instance, if you're going to be reaching into the glove box to get your license and or your registration, for instance, let him know, like, hey, officer, I'm going to reach for my registration, and then give it to him, okay? Cooperate and comply with the police officer's requests. Be very respectful and courteous. Sometimes police officers won't share that same courtesy and respect, but hey, that's their problem. You can be a decent human being. And you can always cooperate and comply and be professional with the police officer, okay? But with that being said, know that anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, right? So if you get a ticket and you try to contest it, anything that you say, they're gonna use that against you. If they ask you, hey, do you know why I pulled you over? And you say, yes, because I was speeding, right? They're gonna use that against you, okay? So just know that, as you're complying and cooperating with the police officer, you might wanna limit the amount that you converse with them, right? Just answer their questions and do what they say. You don't have to volunteer additional information, okay? Also, know your rights. So Google and research what your rights are, and make sure that they're not being violated by the police officer. And then at the end, if you feel like you are wrong, you can fight your traffic ticket by yourself or with the help of a lawyer. Now, when I was in high school, like I mentioned before, I was really into cars. I built a lot of cars, and my car was in the Fast and Furious franchise movies, and I was really into like racing and whatnot. So I had a heavy foot. So I got tickets like literally all the time. I know, parents' worst nightmare. That was me. Okay. So I got tickets all the time. But to make sure I wasn't a nightmare to my parents, I fought every single traffic ticket. Okay. And that was a very scary thing for me to do initially. But I thought, hey, it can't be rocket science, right? So let me try to figure out how to do this, right? And the way I did that was when the police officer gives you a ticket, he can't just give you a ticket for any reason. He's got to give you a reason for his ticket, right? And that reason is you can always find it in the citation area, right? And there'll be a specific California vehicle code that he's going to cite you for, okay? Speeding, I believe the basic speed code is 22350, and then there's 22349A, 22349B. So there's different types of speeding tickets that you can get, right? What you need to do is when you get that ticket, if you feel like you were wrong, you got to research that particular California vehicle code that he wrote you up for or that he alleges that you violated, okay? And then on the back of your citation, there should be instructions of what you need to do if you want to fight that ticket. All you need to do is follow those instructions and figure out which is the best way for you to do that, right? There's something called trial by written declaration where you can write in your response to a ticket, or there's something called, or you just basically appear on the appearance date, okay? So that's a whole nother animal that we can maybe get into at another time, but we just don't have enough time for that on this session. Again, this is not meant to be a holistic presentation. It's just to give you the bullet points so that you can do the research on your own at the end, okay? But again, look through this list and make sure you comply with them. Police officers, again, they're just human beings. They're not like robots or anything like that. They're here to serve you and the community. So make sure that you're respectful and you comply with them. And hey, being respectful and complying with them doesn't help in the event that you ask them to maybe let you go on a warning, right? So if you're not cooperative and you're mean to them and you're disrespectful, I can guarantee you if you ask them to give you a break, they're gonna say no, okay? And they'll probably write you a ticket for something else, okay? So be courteous, comply, and ask them if they can give you a warning, right? Doesn't hurt. The worst that they can say is no, okay? So that's that for traffic citations. Now, here's the another big thing that could happen is if you get into an accident, what should you do, okay? First, you should always be practicing defensive driving, always, right? What does that mean? That means even if you are someone that follows all the rules and does everything right, it doesn't mean that the person next to you or in the lane next to you is going to be doing the same thing. So you need to always be paying attention and practicing defensive driving, okay? So in the event that you do get into a car accident, just like a ticket, you wanna make sure that you are in a safe location, okay? So if you get into a car accident in the middle of the freeway, someone rear ends you or something like that in the middle of the freeway, if you have the ability to do so, try to move over to the side of the freeway or somewhere safe, okay? Staying in the middle of a very busy freeway is not safe. So again, every circumstance is gonna be different. So just whatever you think is gonna be the most safe position for you, try to do that. If you're on the freeway, don't get out of the car, okay? Don't get out into the middle of the freeway where there's moving cars. Just, you wanna be as safe as possible, all right? Next, if you or anyone is injured, make sure you call 911 right away. And then call 911 to have police come out and take a police report. Now, this is very important, especially if you are not at fault at the accident, because you want to have some kind of documentation as to your car accident, okay? Unfortunately, the police are not always going to come out. Sometimes they're going to ask you, is anyone seriously injured? And if the answer to that question is no, then they're just going to say, exchange information yourselves, right? But if you can, try to get the police to come out, especially on a big accident. Because what that's going to do is, if you're not at fault, that's going to help your lawyer take that police report and look at the facts and look at what the police think is who is at fault, and then give that to the insurance companies to let them know that, you know, you're not at fault. And believe me, it's happened more often than not that there's people that have come to me for help, and they failed to get a police report, and they trusted that the other driver was going to say that they made a mistake. When push came to shove, they changed and they lied. They changed their statement and they lied. So you always want to have a police report to take the statements of each driver and to have them give their opinion as to who they think is at fault. So again, get into a car accident, make sure you're in a safe location, call 911 only if you or anyone is injured. If you guys are not injured, then only call 911 to have the police come out and take a police report, okay? Next, very important, you need to take pictures of the accident scene, okay? Everyone or most people should have a phone of some sort that has a camera, so take pictures of the accident scene, preferably where the accident occurred, okay? If, like, for instance, if it's safe to leave your vehicles where the accident occurred, then take it like that. Don't move the cars. But I know this contradicts the first bullet point, but only if it's safe to do so. If it's not safe, then pull over and then take a picture of the accident scene or where the accident happened without the cars there, okay? Next is you want to take a picture of the other person's driver's license and their automobile insurance, okay? You want to also make sure that the driver's license is theirs, so look at the picture and make sure it's them. You'll be surprised. I get so many clients who give me driver's license and they're like, wait a second, that's not even the person, okay? So right then and there, you may be under the pressure of stress and you may not remember all of this, but you know, try to remember to look at the driver's license, make sure it's them, and then also make sure that you get the automobile insurance, okay? And when you get the automobile insurance, there's certain things you want to look out for, right? You want to make sure that the policy is effective the date that you get into the car accident. So if you look at the insurance card, they'll have effective dates, right? So you want to make sure that the day that you got into the accident falls within those effective dates, all right? The next thing is you want to make sure that the car listed on the automobile insurance is the car that is involved in the car accident, okay? So if it says like 2014 Honda Civic, you want to make sure that you don't need to know the year, but just look to see if that's the actual Honda Civic, okay? The other thing is you want to see if the driver's license name matches the name on the automobile insurance. If it doesn't, it's okay, because sometimes people are driving their parents' cars, their friends' cars, or something like that. Just as long as that automobile insurance has an effective policy and it's covering the car that you're involved in, that you got into an accident with, okay? Sometimes people give their AAA cards or their registration. That's not the same thing. So make sure it's the automobile insurance card, okay? If they give you their AAA card or their registration, tell them, hey, this is not automobile insurance. I need your automobile insurance card, okay? Some people may have AAA insurance, and that's okay. But if they give you their AAA card, which is just a membership card that they're part of the AAA membership, that's not the same thing, all right? It should be a little piece of paper with all their information, and it should have the insurance company's name and whatnot. So make sure you get that. Another thing, if possible, is make sure you get surveillance footage of the car accident to show that you weren't at fault if you can. Preferably, you should have your own dash cam. I cannot tell you how many times dash cams have saved my clients from being financially responsible for car accidents, okay? So it's a very small investment, but you should definitely have a dash cam. All of my cars in my family, my wife has one, I have one, everyone has a dash cam, okay? Because it's very valuable and it's worth the investment. So if you can, ask your parents for Christmas, I want a dash cam, right? Not the most exciting gift, but hey, it could save you a lot in the future, right? If you're not at fault in the accident, contact your lawyer, all right? Don't contact the insurance companies or anybody else. you want to contact your lawyer first, all right? Uh, and if you're at fault, you should still contact your lawyer to double check if you're at fault or not. And then if they tell you you're at fault, then you just contact the insurance company and file a claim. The reason why this is here is just like when you get a ticket, how I mentioned anything and everything you say to the police officer will be used against you. Same thing here, anything you say, it's going to be used against you when it comes to the insurance claim, right? When you call insurance, you're always going to hear them say, hey, this is a recorded line. And that's because California law requires anybody who's going to record a conversation to give you notice, right? So the insurance companies are going to say, I'm giving you notice to record your call, to record this call. Give me your statement of, you know, your injuries and what happened at the car accident, so that later, if you try to make a claim or anything, they can try to use that information against you. And yes, that includes your own insurance company, right? And that's because, let's say, the car that you get into a car accident with, let's say someone rear ends you, right? And the car that rear ends you does not have insurance. And California is one of the few states that has gosh, I cannot speak. It's Friday. My mouth is already on vacation. But California is one of the few states that has the highest number of uninsured motorists, okay? That means we have the highest number of drivers who are driving around with no insurance, okay? So you should definitely have what's called uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, all right? So talk to your parents, talk to your insurance agents about it, but it's a very small price to pay for big coverage that is absolutely necessary in California. Make sure you have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. Absolutely, that's like, you have to have it, and preferably above what the California minimums are. So if the other driver, going back to what I was saying, if the other driver rear ends you and you don't have insurance, okay, I'm sorry, and the other driver doesn't have insurance, then you're going to have to use your uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist coverage to cover your car and your injuries, okay? Because the other party just doesn't have insurance. They can't cover anything, right? If you don't have that coverage, you're screwed, because you're going to have to go after that person individually. And if they can't afford insurance, I'm pretty sure they're not going to have money to pay you for your own injuries and car damage. So make sure you have that coverage available to you, right? And then if you use that, then automatically your insurance does not have your best interest in mind, right? Because now you're going after your own insurance, and they're not going to want to pay you a lot of money. They're going to try to pay you the least amount of money possible. So anything you tell them, like for instance, if they ask you, are you okay? And you say yes, right? That's a very ambiguous question, but the fact that you said yes to that and you try to bring an injury claim to them later, they're going to say, hey, do you remember when we called you and we talked to you on, you know, April 17, 2020 at 3:30 p.m. We asked you if you were okay after the accident. You said yes. How come you are bringing injury claims afterwards, right? And then they're not going to want to pay you, right? It goes for both insurance companies, your own and the other parties. So they are not your friends. They are a business, right? They are there to, they will protect you in the event that you have the coverage, but they're only going to protect you to the minimum, right? As little as they possibly can. Your lawyer will make sure that, you know, they pay the highest that they can, okay? So that's why in this bullet point, you will not see anywhere to call your insurance unless, you know, again, you're at fault and a lawyer can't help you, right? Then you need your insurance. But other than that, if you're not at fault, you're not going to see on here anywhere to call your insurance, because the lawyer will do it for you, and they will file the claim for you and make sure that the insurance companies don't use any information against you, okay? So to recap, if you get into an accident, go into a safe location. If anyone is injured or you are injured, call 911, ask the police to take a police report, take pictures of the accident scene, take pictures of the other driver's information, get surveillance footage. If you're not at fault, contact your lawyer. And even if if you are at fault, contact them anyway to see if you have a claim, so that they can file the claim for you to the insurance companies and make sure that you get appropriate medical attention and all of that. So Nowhere in this bullet point does it say contact the insurance company, other than the fact that if you're at fault and a lawyer can't help you. All right. Um, Again, this is huge information that if I had known as when I was growing up, it would have saved me so much headache. All right. So just to instill in your mind, I made this little graph. Hopefully, you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys have all seen at least one of these people, right? Do you guys know who this is? This is a little Geico or gecko by Geico. He seems friendly and harmless and whatnot, but again, he doesn't have your best interest in mind. So don't contact them in the event that you get into a car accident. Call the lawyers, because he's really a snake in disguise. All right, all kidding. Same with this guy. He's got a very deep and very assuring voice, saying that you're in good hands. But hey, you know what? Their best interest is not your best interest. Right? They want to pay out as little as possible. Same with this guy's friendly grandfatherly looking figure. It's not on your side. Okay. So make sure that anytime you get into an accident, you follow those guidelines, talk to an attorney, see if they can help you with the claim. If they can't, then you'll have to contact the insurance companies. But know that they are a business at the end of the day. They're not there to give you a lot of money or anything like that. You have to show them why you have certain claims for damages or a bodily injury and whatnot. So follow those guidelines, and then you should be okay. And I think I know that's a lot of information, and it's a lot. And again, this is not meant to be holistic. This is just a quick little thing within an hour to cover topics that I've studied and researched decades on. Right. So just if you have questions, I guess now would be the time. If you don't have a lawyer to contact, you can always reach out to me. I'm more than happy to. I always provide free consultations, so all my information is there. But other than that, if you guys have lawyers, talk to them, figure it out. Most personal injury attorneys will do it on a contingency basis, meaning you don't pay them anything up front. And if they don't win your case, you don't pay them anything at all. So it's like a free lawyer for all of your car accidents. So definitely talk to an attorney. And this is something insurance companies don't want you to know about. So with that being said, we will go into the questions. So